I'm Samantha Brown, professional organizer, decluttering specialist, and business coach. I created Pro Organizers Coach podcast to empower you to reach new heights in your business. I am on a mission to build a supportive sisterhood of passionate professional organizers. So whether you're a seasoned pro or you're just getting started, this podcast is for you. Hey friends, welcome back to the Pro Organizers Coach podcast and YouTube channel. Today is one of my favorite episodes, which is coaching. And today I have Jen from neatnesting.com. She is from northern upstate New York, near Albany. We're kind of laughing because we were just talking about what northern upstate New York is. But Jen is one of the members inside of the POC group coaching community. And we were all doing a session the other day and doing a group chat. And she's like, hey, Samantha, so I was going to do a coaching call with you later about these few different topics. And I was like, ooh, let's record so our listeners can hear too. So first off, thank you, Jen, for coming on the podcast.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me again.
I'm so excited. So today we have two different things we're going to talk about. But first, we wanted to talk more about client expectations, plans, just some stuff that you start to run into once you're launched, you're working with clients, but now some stuff starts to come up. So I'm going to let Jen ask her question. We'll start coaching and just kind of see where it goes.
Sure. Yeah. So my first one is basically talking about how we can establish boundaries when they're more self-imposed boundaries. And maybe we're not busy enough to actually need as many boundaries in place yet, but we want to have them kind of set up now so that when we get busier, we don't have to worry about it. Because I'm kind of struggling with putting in a routine and restricting myself to, like, say, certain days of the week that I'm working with clients or certain times, because technically I have more time than that open, but I'm also trying to keep a structure for myself and for later.
Yeah, and that comes in two ways. It comes in one with the clients, but then again, like you're saying, it also comes in with yourself and your own stuff. Because, when we're working on our business from home, it's even the question of like, well, what time do we stop working and how many hours? Because if not, we could spend 24 hours a day working on our business and have no normal life, quote unquote.
Exactly.
So are you seeing this like coming up in actual like sessions? Is it more of like, are you talking about more from like the phone call on? Where are you thinking like when it comes to interacting with clients and those boundaries specifically?
I would say it's mostly in scheduling sessions and like what days I want to schedule, how many hours to schedule each session, putting limits on that, and like what time of the day, because I tend to have a few clients who I try to set it at like 10 in the morning and they want to push it later and later. And then there's other clients where we don't really have a set. I try to stick with my normal session length of 3 hours, but I have other clients who want to go a lot longer. And I know it's definitely partially me that I'm having a hard time saying no and putting up that boundary. But, it's also just, again, talking like you were mentioning earlier, expectations. If we set those expectations ahead of time, then we can avoid that. So I guess I'm just trying to.
Yeah, let's pinpoint where, because at some point when you are setting the expectation, so maybe walk me through like whether it's the phone call or during the consultation, whenever it is, how are you saying it to the clients? Like how are you describing your process of doing the sessions when it comes to time frame?
It's usually not like my first session with them. It's usually once I start working with somebody and have to schedule later out sessions. I would say, so a lot of times it happens via text where they want to know certain, they're like, okay, what days are you available? And, for me, it's hard for me to just say, I'm only available these days, because I kind of, it's also like, okay, if I have an opening 2 days from now, I'd rather get them in then, but that 2 days from now might be a Saturday. And I don't like to do Saturdays. So, but I'm not answering your question exactly.
No, you are. I'm trying to figure out. So like And especially when it's through text, right? And it's a repeat client. So a lot of those are very good details because it changes from when we first start working with someone to once we've developed a working relationship with them. And then all of a sudden, and like you said, you're wanting to kind of get them in the door as, like, oh, well, I have Saturday or I have this day. Can I ask though, is there a fear around like, well, if I don't offer them my very next day available that I could work with them? Is there a fear that, like, they'd say no or that they wouldn't be able to do the next one?
Yeah, especially a couple of clients I've found tend to have very complicated schedule, or at least in their head they do.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if they really do, but like I have one client who I know works from home, but they do occasionally try to have me on weekends. And it's not a work from home where they have to be in front of their computer 9 to 5. It's a work from home where, okay, you can work when you want and when you're, so I'm like, I could come during the week, but it just happens to be, I think also it's when they are waiting till the last minute. So that happens a lot too. Like they usually will text me and say, hey, I need this done by this day. And it's like 3 days from now. So that also, I guess, is part of the problem.
Yeah. So do you think that, well, first off, is there a reason that a schedule isn't or a session isn't getting scheduled when you leave the previous one? Or is this someone that, like, you've done your sessions with them, it's been a few months, and now they're reaching back out again?
I find my clients, not all of them, but a lot of them don't want to commit to another session yet. They end up doing it, but I have a very hard time, and perhaps it's because I am good about letting them not finalize something, but a lot of them have, like, oh, let me see how things go over the next week and I'll get back to you. And then they end up contacting me just a few days before they need it. Or I have the one similar client to the one who does the weekend sometimes. He also will want to do a tentative day. So he'll say, can we tentatively hold next Tuesday or whatever? And I say yes because I don't know how to say no.
I was going to say, I think the answer to that would be no, we cannot tentatively hold next Tuesday.
And it's not like I actually put it in. Like I don't hold it. It's not like, so if somebody else called and said, I need Tuesday, they're going to get it. But I do that. And then but in his mind, it's now tentative. So then, he'll send me a text a day or two later and be like, no, I don't think that's going to work. Let's wait another week and then I'll get back to you. So I definitely know that part of it is me letting them be wishy-washy.
Yeah.
And it's
Do you think you're helping them somehow?
not.
Okay.
No. I mean, well, in theory, yes. In the moment, I think I'm helping them. I think I'm doing them, a kindness to be flexible and to allow them to decide on their own terms, because it's time out of their day, it's money, it's mental energy, especially for a lot of my clients. It's a lot of mental energy. So I get it, but also I think I'm actually doing them a disservice because I'm not enforcing those boundaries, making them stay accountable to their schedules, because a lot of times clients like these have difficulty with time management, have difficulty with, task initiation, decision making, and me giving them that out is in the long run probably not helping.
Yeah. Would you be able to offer or to kind of tell them at some point, like, no, I can't tentatively, or like before you're leaving a session, let's say, and you're talking to a client, and you're like, hey, let's go ahead and get another session on the books. I don't care. And this is what I tell people. I don't care if it's a week from now or 2 weeks from now, like whatever time frame works for your budget and for your schedule, that's fine. But let's go ahead and get it on the books so I can help hold you accountable. And so I can help, and all of those things that you just said that they struggle with. if you bring that up to them of, hey, making this appointment is actually helping you with those things, then it helps them shift their mindset of like, oh, it is helping me to, and it is helping me to be accountable. And the other thing is the momentum. One thing I found that most clients, if I flat out tell them, listen, we've got to get some kind of momentum going, or we are never going to get this the way that you're actually wanting it done. Like the goals that you're setting, we're not going to achieve them if we just do one session here and one session there, and then maybe 2 weeks to a month later, another, there's no momentum behind it. So then we can't actually make the progress that we could be making if we had some sort of momentum. Now, I don't care if the momentum's once a week. I don't care if it's once every other week. I don't even care if it's once a month, if that's all you can do. But let's have some sort of plan so we can keep that momentum going. And every client I have said that to has been like, it's like bells go off. They're like, oh, that makes sense.
Right.
So then I'm setting the expectation of, because I tell them that straight from the phone call, straight from during the consultation. So then I'm setting it up to where no matter what, when I get done with a session, okay, when are we booking our next session? Like, it's not are we, it's when are we?
Mhm. Gotcha.
Yeah, because then they're already in that mindset of, oh yeah, we're trying to keep the momentum going so we can get this accomplished. Now, if they get to the point where they're like, well, I really, of course, everyone's different. So some clients will end up being like, well, I'm really not sure right now. And then I tell them that's totally fine, but just understand I normally stay booked out about 2 to 3 weeks at a time, and sometimes longer. So it really would be nice if we can get something on the calendar, or when you get ready to, make sure you let me know as far out as you possibly can, because I may not have any availability for 2 to 3 weeks. And so when I explain it to them that way, all of a sudden it's like, oh, okay, well, I need to make sure to get on the calendar. And I think that's where you're having the issue, because you're not booked out like that yet. And so you can't really say that, but you kind of can, because you don't have to say I'm booking out 2 to 3 weeks. But even if you have one booking that's 2 weeks ahead, you're technically booking out 2 weeks ahead. If you have a session that's booked a month from now, you're technically booking out a month ahead of time. So it's not that it has to be full, every day full for all those weeks, but just something to where they understand. And I don't know if you've ever mentioned this to clients, but another thing that I found that helps is telling them, like, listen, I only do one session per day. I am the sole breadwinner of my family. And so if I don't have work that day, there's no money coming into my household for that entire day. Or if you cancel on me, I lose an entire day's worth of work. When I explain it that way, all of a sudden they're like, oh, like, I don't think people think about the fact that we only do one session per day,
Yeah. I know I've had that conversation with some clients, but not all. So that's probably something I need to mention as far as the, that I only do one a day, and that makes, a difference for me.
Yeah.
But I like what you said about the momentum, because I wasn't really thinking of it that way. I mean, obviously, yes, we know that's the case, but I wasn't really thinking of it from that perspective. And it's a good reminder, because I had a client over, was it this? Yeah, like late spring, early summer, who we were doing great. We had, I think it was 6 or 7 weeks in a row where it was like every Tuesday. And then all of a sudden he had a family emergency, he had to fly back to Michigan. And I followed up once or twice after, crickets. So
Yep.
I think as soon as he lost that momentum, he just, it either wasn't a priority, or maybe he felt like he needed to take a break financially. I don't know. And if they have to say no because of finances, I totally get it. I mean, I am not making a ton of money doing this. I'm not getting rich off of this. So I get, wanting to be careful with your finances, but it's a good point that, reminding them that doing it that way keeps the momentum, which again gets them towards that goal.
Right. And it gets them like it's for their benefit. It's not
Yes.
necessarily like, hey, get on my calendar because I need the work, which I do, but it's also, hey, this really is for you. I've set my business up in a way that is going to help you, not just with the goal that you're after, but also with some other things like time management and accountability and all of the stuff that is kind of a byproduct of working with an organizer.
Yes. Yeah, then that's a good point. But you make a good point about actually, because of course I know this, but
Yeah.
I should tell them that, I need to set those expectations. And if I tell them that directly, then they can understand better why I want to keep,
Right, because right now and that's a great point. If you've not told them from the beginning why it helps them to keep getting on the calendar, then why would they? Of course, they'd be like, for instance, if we were a plumber, I don't know why I always use a plumber, but whatever. But if we were a plumber and we're like, "Oh, okay, I only call when I have a leaky faucet." Well, then all of a sudden, we're only calling when it's, like, to the point of an emergency or, like, it's, a dire situation. Now I call the plumber. That's not what we do. We are coming in on a scheduled, consistent basis to help over time reach goals and create new systems and, help it be sustainable and help them create new systems for themselves. So but they're not used to that. They're used to service providers that you call once it gets to a certain point. And
Mm,
then they come in for 1 or 2 sessions, they fix it, and then they go away. They're not used to, so we have to help them understand why what we do is so different
mm.
from other service providers.
Yeah, that's an excellent point, actually. Because, yeah, I never really thought about it that way. They are calling us when in their mind, well, at least with my clients, a lot of them are calling when they think it's an emergency, when they've had
Oh,
enough,
mhm.
when they have reached the point where they've tried so many things and they've just given up and they've said, okay, I need to call somebody else in. And I do tend to get a lot of people who think, we can come in and do 1 or 2 sessions and that's it. And I'm not saying you can't do that with an organizer if you have certain areas, but I know, like, with me, with the clients that I tend to work with, the whole house needs to be done. They may not want to focus on the whole house all at once, but it's definitely not a quick fix. And I think having more of those conversations to explain that to them will help.
Yeah, and I think that's the other piece is I think a lot of us not that we wanna rush through the consultation, but sometimes the consultation either takes a left turn and we end up because we know they can say, "Oh, you're just here for a closet." They end up showing us the whole house, right? So we already know we're gonna be there for minimum an hour half the time. Well, for me, instead of setting down and, like, saying those things during just, like, the paperwork part of it, I'm saying those things from the time they've called on the phone. I'm saying those like, I'm planting those seeds the whole time. If I'm gonna be there an hour, I'm gonna make sure that I let them know, just to kinda warm them up to the idea of, yes, this is like, "Look, it took you how many years for this house to get this way?" Or, "How long have you lived here? Have you been dealing with this long?" And even just asking those questions when they're like, "Oh, yeah, I've been here 4 years, and it's been this way the whole time I've lived here." Well, then by the time we sit down to go over the paperwork and I say, you know, "You've been living here for 4 years, and it took that long for it to get this way. This is not gonna be an overnight fix." Now, yeah, it probably will just take 1 or 2 sessions for just the closet you called me about, but then we can actually take our time and go through the house and get the whole thing the way that you're wanting it. It doesn't have to be 5 days in a row by any means, but if we can keep some kind of consistency going, even if it is once a month, that I keep coming back and we just keep working our way through the house, that's where you're gonna get the most kind of bang for your buck with working with me. Because right now, if I put this fire out but then you wait 3 or 4 months to call me again for another fire, well, then this fire is gonna be back started again, and we're not gonna make it to the other fires. And there's just something about once you actually kind of, like, help them understand that part, then they're like, "Oh, okay, I get it." And there's no pressure, and that's what I love about not doing packages. There's no pressure of, "Okay, you have to buy 30 hours with me, and then we're going to go through the whole house, and here's this huge overwhelming thing that I'm trying to sell you. Instead of that, it's, listen, we're going to take it one step at a time. I have got you. We will get through this. I promise you. And I tell them, but that's the reason. The reason that I don't do packages and I do one step at a time is so you aren't overwhelmed. And so we can go at the pace that's comfortable for you, but that's still enough of a pace to keep the momentum going.
Yeah. And I think now that you say that too, it also makes me realize that the way I explain how, my sessions work, and the fact that, they only pay me at the end, they're paying little bits at a time, but also the way I have explained it, I think I'm also hurting myself, because my way of trying to, kind of say to them, look, we can take it at your pace and what your finances can handle. The way I say it, though, it makes it sound like we can only do 1 or 2 sessions and then I'll go away, kind of thing. Like I word it in a way where I'm like, if you are not, if you just want to do a few sessions with me and then you decide, you want to.
You're giving them way too many options.
Yes.
Way too many options.
But it's interesting to hear, from you, because, that's when it came to my mind that I'm like, I'm giving them outs. And I don't think they're doing it on purpose. It's just that now I've given them in the back of their mind, like, okay, she's saying, we just do 1 or 2 sessions and that's it. Even if that's not what I meant, it's
right.
I'm saying it.
And I think that that's the other part, is we forget that we're coming in as the professional.
Mm-hmm.
If we don't put that like professional hat on of, they're literally going to take every word I say as like authority, like they are going to take it to the bank. And so I've got to be very aware of the words that are coming out of my mouth when I'm talking to my clients, even if it's during the session, like the whole time, every time we interact, I have to be very aware of what I say and how I say it. And don't get me wrong, the only reason I know this is because I've screwed it up so many times that I've finally found a system that works, right? Because I kept doing the same thing. Like I remember, and it was through text too, which I guess texting is probably not the best, obviously, but it is what it is. But at one point, there was this one client that kept canceling on me and canceling on me and canceling on me. And it was before I had a deposit fee to get on my calendar. And my husband one day, he said, read me those texts. And I read it to him and he goes, Samantha, do you hear what you just said? You literally just, like, the way I worded it was pretty much like giving them an out of like, well, if you want to, but if you don't want to, don't worry about it. It's fine. No worries. Pretty much. Yeah.
Yeah, very people-pleasing wording.
Yes, very people-pleasing. And so that's awesome. I'm glad. And so, so now moving forward, like, you just be aware, but also make sure that you're mentioning that momentum thing, because it's the truth. It really is what's going to help them learn to undo those habits and learn the new habits and learn how to maintain. And I tell clients too, I'm like, listen, once we get the majority of the house gone through or the bulk of it done, then you can call me back for like maintenance. Like right now I have one client that after we went through her whole house, she's realized she needs me to come back for 2 maintenance sessions every 4 months. Like, we have a plan. We know now that about every 4 months, I've got to come back and do 2 follow-up sessions just to help get everything back in order. And I'm like, that's great. Because the way she told it to me, it was just the other day, it was almost like she felt discouraged that she needed me to come back every 4 months. And I'm like, no, this is fantastic. Now we know the plan. We know what works for you. Every 4 months, we'll get you on the calendar for a couple sessions. We'll get it all back in order. And then I'll see you 4 months later. And she was like, oh, okay. So but that's once we've gone through the home. Because, with her, I worked with her for probably 6 months, not every week, but maybe like bi-weekly for, or once every 3 weeks, or like kind of sporadically, but still with momentum for over a 5 to 6 month period. And we got the whole house gone through. So now we're able to do those maintenance things. But like you said, I think we're so afraid also of the cost, right? Like we're so worried about the cost for them, and we're assuming that they either can't afford it or they're not going to be able to. And so we've got to watch our own mindsets around those things, because if we're assuming and putting that energy out, then we're essentially saying that like it's not worth the value's not there without actually saying it. That's kind of what we're implying to them, when it really is actually way more valuable. Like some of my clients that message me like a year later and they're like, "Hey, just wanted to check in. My house is still like, look at these photos." And you know, there is value. You paid me. We did 4 sessions, let's say, and that's all it took for this one particular client I'm thinking of. We did 4 sessions, and after those 4 sessions where we got the hotspot closet areas, now she's able to maintain and she's got it from there. And some clients do. And then other clients need a little more hand-holding, and that's fine, but she paid me for 4 sessions, and essentially now she doesn't have to worry about me ever coming back because she's got it from that point on. For me, that's worth the cost of 4 sessions for your entire home to be organized and for you to have systems and be able to maintain them yourself, when before, literally her strategy was throw it in a closet and shut the door. And then walk around being stressed out about the fact that everything's in the closet with the door shut.
Right.
And
just the load of stress off of her, her health is improving, even if she doesn't realize it. Because
oh yeah,
she's not carrying that stress around. So yes, it is very valuable, and it's one of those things where we have to definitely work on our own mindset and try not to diminish what we do, because
we're afraid they can't afford it.
And as you remind us in coaching all the time, we are not just, they're not paying us just to clean up a room. They're paying us for a solution. They're paying us for knowledge that we teach them. All sorts of things. So
and other thing I heard today actually on something, and I was like, ooh, that's a powerful statement. They're not paying us for us. They're paying us for the services we provide, which to me was a helpful way to look at our own like cost stuff sometimes, where we're like, oh, but it's just me doing whatever, whether it's coaching, whether it's organizing, whatever, it comes up for a lot of us when it's just us. We feel like, oh, but it's the like our value, and I don't want to charge too much for me. We're not charging for us. Exactly what you just said. We're charging for our services, our knowledge, our expertise, everything we're going to share with them in a bundle that they're going to get that took us years to obtain.
Yep.
Yeah,
exactly.
Okay. So how are you feeling around that?
No, I think that's good. I think I'm not surprised that it's mostly my problem. You know what I mean? That's mostly I need to work on being more intentional about how I say things, and also being more clear with them about what to expect, and try to pull back on the reins of the people pleasing just a little bit.
Yeah. Well, and pull back a little bit on the assuming, no offense, but the assuming that what their finances are, that what their whatever is. We have no idea. And people spend bukus of money on, Dunkin' Donuts and all these other things. So like, if people can afford that, then let's just assume that they can afford us. And if they can't afford us, well, then if it was that important, they can save up to afford us, or we can come once a month or whatever that looks like. But if it's important to them and if they're ready, they'll find a way. And so if the money's an issue for you, it's going to be an issue for them, because you're almost putting that on them in a way. And so you have to kind of disconnect yourself from the money, which I know is super hard to do, but over time it gets easier.
It has. I mean, if people have been listening for a while, we did an episode previously with me where the main focus was the money. And definitely I have grown from that, and it's a lot easier for me. But I still, try to, I try to express to people that I want to be that provider for them so that they can space it out if they need to, but I just need to come up with a better way of explaining and not, giving them that out and also not giving them the wrong impression that this is going to be a quick process.
Yes, no, it is not. Yeah. Okay, perfect. So then remind me, what was question number 2?
So I'm curious how you go into sessions, if you go in with a specific plan of attack, like what area you're going to cover, and maybe what items you want to bring with you. Do you have that planned ahead with the client, or do you just kind of wing it when you get there? Because I tend to have some clients where there's so many areas they want to cover, and they tend to want to change which area we're working on. We may discuss ahead of time, hey, today we're going to work in the kitchen. And then I get there and they're like, you know what? I decided I'd really like to do the bathroom or whatever. So I'm just trying to figure out, how do you handle it? And how do we kind of use our professionalism and the fact that we're the expert in this to set that structure for them so that we can accomplish more?
Yeah. Well, and I think because we had kind of previously talked about this too, but the problem with their thinking and what how they do things is what got them in this place in the first place. Not in a bad way. It just is. Their thinking got them there where there's these hot spots and there's these areas. And for instance, I'll share with you. So I had one client that the very first session we did her garage. And we did 3 hours in her garage together, just the 2 of us. She was thrilled with the results. The second session, I come back and we were gonna be doing her bedroom closet. Well, she pulled this on me where we talked, like, the day before, and she's like, "I'm freaking out about you coming, and I'm just so worried about the clothes, but I was also thinking while you're here, I mean, I don't have that many clothes, so I think we should do the bedroom closet. We also need to hit the bathroom closet, and there was this one other little nook area that I'd like for us to hit. So since we have a 3-hour session, I'm thinking we do 1 area per hour, so we get more done in the time."
Yep, I've had that. Yep.
Yeah. And the end of that session, she sends me a message and she's like, "I just don't feel like we got nearly as much done today as we did the first time." And I'm like, "You're right, because we didn't. Because the first time we focused 3 hours on one area until that room was done.
Mhm.
The second time, we only like 30% of the way did 3 different areas. So of course nothing feels like it got done." My point in sharing that is she's a perfect example of what you're talking about, right? Where when we come in with a plan, things normally go a certain way where we know it needs to get done. And then the other way, once they start taking over of what they want to do, it can go awry. And so sometimes it's as simple as just saying, "Listen, I hear what you're saying. I understand that, like, we could do these few different areas. But from my experience, what I found is that it's actually better if we focus on one area so we can actually get it done before moving on to the next." Now, that's a little different than what you're talking about them, like, you walking through the door and them saying, "Hey, even though we were gonna do the kitchen, now let's do the bathroom instead." So, in that scenario, I am very kinda open with my clients in the sense of I normally text them, like, the day before and remind them of our sessions because I know most of them have time management issues and or not issues, but, they're still learning. And so, a lot of times, I'll be like, "Hey, just wanted to remind you I'll be there at 9 a.m. in the morning. I'm so excited to work on the kitchen," or whatever it is that we're supposed to be working on. Just to remind them, this is where we're working, right? But the other piece is if you're getting products for an area, you have to know what area it is that you're working because not all products are going to fit in all areas. And so I feel like it's a little bit of a kind of what we were talking about, with the first topic. It's more of setting those expectations from the beginning and just flat out letting them know, like, with my expertise, this is what I know to be true. So with your example, though, how is it happening? Like, is it happening before you leave the last set? Like, at what point are they switching it up on you?
I mean, I think it depends, but as a good example, like sometimes I will suggest to a client that we work on a certain area next because it's something that maybe they've mentioned multiple times in other sessions in passing. it's something that they've said stresses them out, or maybe an area we're working on needs more space. So like, say we're going through, I don't know, the living room, and there's stuff in the living room that really needs to go in a storage closet, but there's no room in the storage closet. So sometimes I'll say, hey, let's clear out that storage closet so that we can move these items in there that you know for sure you want to keep. Because we know in that storage closet there are things you don't. So let's make some room. But then they'll want to change that up when I actually get there. And they'll be like, well, I really want to work on this space because maybe the storage closet isn't as visible. So this other space is bothering them more. So they tend to want to switch gears to maybe an area that they think is bothering them more, which I do want to, work on them with that. Like I want to honor that. Like I don't want to leave that stressing them out. But at the same time, I also know if we don't work on this one area, it's going to slow up the rest of the process. Does that make sense? What I'm, so sometimes sometimes I know they're specifically avoiding a certain area. That's the other thing I come across is where I'll mention one area multiple times because they've said in the beginning, this is something they wanted to work on. And then every time I try to get them to actually work on it, they're like, but we could do this other thing over here. And I'm like, no.
Right. Yeah, no, I completely get that. So one thing I do know that during my phone calls normally, I tell them, and it's normally when I'm explaining the reason for the consultation, is I'll say, listen, I know that, you're calling for XYZ, but I do a free consultation. And the reason I do the free consultation is so you and I can meet and we can make sure that it's a good fit. But the other reason is so my brain can get eyes on the house and on the situations that you're talking about so I can come up with a plan and we know where to start. So that's setting it up from the very beginning that I'm making the plan, that I'm telling us where we're going to start. I don't say, because if it were just them, like I could just be like, okay, well, you've called about, the kitchen, the bathroom, which do you want to start on first? Okay, I don't even need to see it. I'll see you on Friday or whatever. But instead of saying that, I make sure to let them know the point of the consultation is for me to look at the space and come up with a game plan so I can walk you step by step through the process towards the goals that you are saying you want to achieve. And when I say it like that, they're like, oh, okay. And so then when I go to the consultation and I'm actually walking the house, then I'll explain to them. Like, for instance, your example of the living room with the closet. I'll say, hey, so I know that there's this stuff in the living room, but we actually need to kind of reverse what most people think is that they need to go buy the products first, then we come back and then we work on stuff. It's actually the exact opposite. We need to look at the final product, but then we need to kind of back trace it and figure out where this stuff is going to go. Because if not, we're going to get pigeonholed somewhere and then we're going to get stuck, which is why most people get stuck before they call me. So what I would actually advise is that we go ahead and start in that closet first. Because if we do, then we're going to have a place to put these other things. So it really is just about explaining to them why, but it's also about starting the conversation in the phone call with, the reason I'm coming for the consultation is to get eyes on it and let my brain start to figure out the puzzle so I can walk you step by step through the process. And it kind of puts me in control of this is how we're going to do this thing. Now, it still does not work perfect at all. I have a client that I can think of right now. Her and I, the momentum speech went great with her. We work together every week. She'd probably be my ideal client if she is my ideal client, actually. She's fantastic. But this one little thing she likes to do one session per room, whatever we got done in that one session for that one room that I said we were going to work on. But then the next time, let's go to another room. Even if that one's not done, it doesn't matter. She wants to go to the next room. What's the next room? What's the next room? And so what I've learned with her, this past week was the first time that I actually did a second session in the same room. And I brought the products because the first one was decluttering. It was a bathroom. And then the second one was bringing bins and baskets and the organizing.
Mhm.
And by the time I left, she was almost in tears. She was like, this is what I want at the end of this is what I've been after. She's like, you get me. And I was like, yes, because you actually let me do a second session in this room. And instead of just doing the decluttering, we got the actual. I'm trying to go through my things and see if I can find the before and after photos, because I cannot wait to share these before and afters. But, once I was able to actually help her understand, this is why the other rooms, because she's like, well, some of them are getting cluttered again.
Mhm.
Yes, because we only did the decluttering. We didn't actually
Right.
do the organizing.
Yeah, we didn't put in any systems yet.
Right.
We just
And then I even got to put in like lazy Susans and
Yep.
separate the makeup by like topic and category and all of that. And it helped her finally understand, oh, I'm not letting her finish, and so I say that, and I just showed you that because she's a prime example of, oh, but we already did the bathroom. Well, we did the first part of the bathroom.
Right.
So sometimes just helping them understand that, like, yes, I specialize in decluttering, but that doesn't mean that we don't need to finish putting in the systems too. It
Right.
just means we've got to start with the decluttering. And, and I think a lot of people, I think they think they're two separate things. Like they think like, oh, we're doing
Yes.
decluttering only or we're doing organizing only. They're not understanding that this is a two-step process of one thing.
Right. Yes. Because I've had some people, tell me that, oh, I have to declutter before I can hire you. And I'm like, no, we can. But if that's what's holding you up, if you've been waiting a year to call me because you wanted to declutter first and it hasn't happened, just call me and we'll do that as part of a session.
Yes.
But the one thing I guess I would ask is, and it sounds like for her, the answer was to just show her what can be done. But like, how do you think you would handle it if someone, after you explain to them, we need to do this next step, and you explain to them why you need to do this next area, then they still say, yeah, I hear you, but I still want to do this other thing. Like these
Are they telling you why they want to do that other thing? Because I think I'd start digging. And you don't have to dig, like, some people, they're just set in their ways, like that one lady with the garage and then the 3-in-1. I tried to convince her, I tried to talk her out of it, she was so determined that I finally was just like, "Okay, we'll do it your way, and we'll see how it turns out." Because I was done with you know? But some people just say it kind of like what you said earlier, because they're either avoiding something else, but if you have that conversation with them and you say, "Well, can you tell me a little more about that?" Or like, "Can you explain to me what your thought process is behind it just so I can make sure I'm understanding and that we're on the same path together?"
Mhm.
And just, ask a few whys, how comes, that kind of thing. And then maybe there is a reason, or the second that they say something, kind of like what happened with you a minute ago, that's where that coaching piece comes in. Because the second you kind of coach them through it, you'll figure out either they're just stuck in their ways and you're just going to have to do what they're wanting to do because that's just who they are. And they don't care what you have to say.
Yeah.
Or they had just convinced themselves that maybe they needed to declutter that closet before you got in there. So they're trying to avoid it because they don't want you to see it. Or, like, I don't know how often I have to tell people, no, seeing a messy area, I get excited. I see a puzzle and they're like, wait, what? I'm like, no, seriously, like my
Yeah.
brain sees a puzzle. Like I get so excited. And I'm like, there is no judgment. I was like, there's the opposite of judgment, and kind of reaffirming. So while asking questions, also reaffirming the fact that, like, I want to do this with you. Like, I would love to do that area. There's nothing because a lot of times it comes back to shame.
Yes, definitely. Shame is a big one. And they are either ashamed of the space or they're ashamed of what emotions are going to come up when they go through the space. Like I know the one client I'm thinking of who's been avoiding this one closet. I definitely feel like there's going to be some shame involved there. And actually, now that I think about it, I think it's going to shame going through the stuff. But also, I think the shame, once that stuff is gone, because right now that stuff is hiding other things. So there's, long story short, it's a bunch of bags of things that apparently he previously had sorted for donation, but that was a few years ago. So now he's not comfortable just letting the bags go. He has to look again and make sure he really wants to donate. But I think also they're hiding the fact that underneath there's a ton of paperwork from his old paperwork, his father, who's still alive but is in, I think, assisted living, a lot of other things that will need to be tackled, and he, I don't think, wants to tackle it. So I think that's part of it too. So,
and maybe once you ask, if you're like, hey, can you tell me a little more about like why we can't go into the closet? Let's say he if he wanted to say, well, I don't, like, let's say you get to the point of him being like, okay, you're right, it's the paperwork. Like, I really do not want to have to deal with that paperwork. Okay, well then we can get a bin. We can stuff the paperwork in a bin, set it to the side and deal with it a different day. That can be a different session. But let's go ahead and get the rest of the closet done so we can get those donations out of there, and then we'll come back around to the paperwork when you're ready.
Yeah.
It literally could be something as simple as that. But if you never ask and you never kind of try to figure out the why behind why he keeps trying to avoid the area, then you'll never help him see that it's hurting him, not helping him.
Gotcha. So yeah, definitely more of, if they're trying to change, like, the area you want to work in, or the plan, just, sometimes we get caught in our own, stuff. And, you might feel like, I might sit there and think, okay, well, obviously my plan isn't good then. Or like, make it about me. It's not about me. Turn it around and focus on, okay, why are they in this mindset? Why do they want to focus on this certain area? And start asking them the questions and try and find a solution, and rather than just, or also rather than acquiesce and just be like, okay, fine, we'll do that. But then knowing that it's going to cause problems, down the line if you don't.
And the other thing, especially, and I don't know how you do this, but I know for me, like, a lot of times I'll either stop at like a Starbucks and get someone like, a frappe or like something on the way to a session. And I kind of do that for two reasons. But one of the reasons is so when I get there, I'm like, hey, let's sit for just a second and like chit chat. And I always try to 5 or 10 minutes tops, like not long, but like, hey, let's sit down and figure out what we're doing today, or like go back over what we're doing today. How was your week? Like a little bit of small talk. But it sets the tone for every time I come over, we're going to sit and chit chat for just a minute. We're not going to just jump straight in. And then that way, if I'm struggling with something with them, it's during that time that I can kind of sit face to face and be like, hey, because if not, they're going to take control and be like, all right, let's go. Like a lot of my clients like to do that. The ones that won't sit down or even just stand there and kind of talk to me for a minute first, they're so like, oh, let's go, 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 go. They haven't even thought through. And I'm like, well, hold on. Let's think this through real quick before we actually jump in. Let's just take a breath. So this goes a lot smoother, because I can feel your energy and it's very like all over the place. And then they're like, oh, really? Like they're not even noticing those things about, or they'll be like, oh yeah, I was really stressed. I almost called and canceled on you this morning. Or, like then the truth will start to come out. But then I'm able to actually say, oh, well, that's funny. Like, my clients tell me that all the time, but,
Right.
Why? And then I can start kind of asking a few questions. It calms them down. It sets the tone for like, okay, now let's go do the session wherever we were planning on doing it. And there may be a good reason. And like I said, some clients, they're just set in their ways and you're just going to have to essentially do what they want to do because they're paying you and they could care less what you say. Some clients are just like that. But the majority of them don't realize that they're doing what they're doing. And the second you bring it to their attention, they're more than happy to be like, oh, okay. Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah. No, yeah, that's a good point, Samantha.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. I love it.
But yes, no, I appreciate that because it's a different way of, not that I don't do a little bit of coaching while I'm with them, because I definitely do, but it's sometimes I am more coaching when it comes to like individual systems and items that, they're talking through decluttering. I'm not really necessarily coaching as far as the planning part. So I'll just,
Okay.
I'll
Yeah.
have to kind of start thinking about that. Okay, that's going to be part of the process too, is just integrate more of me, coaching and also setting the expectations as far as the planning side of things.
Oh, well, and you'll love, so in the Strengthen Your Business course and mastermind that you're a part of, so June's, I think it's module 6, is the how to add coaching to your tool belt. I got so excited about that one, and, like, while I was recording it, I was like, "Oh my gosh, I love this stuff," 'cause it's me talking about, like, active listening and powerful questions and, like, paraphrasing and reflective like, all of the stuff that, like, I use with my clients, but now that I took the time to think about how I use it with them, it's just the second you're aware of, like, some of the stuff you can do with the clients, but like you're saying, it's also at the different stages. I guess for me, I've always assumed, "Oh, well, everyone knows that you use the coaching from, like, the moment that they're talking to you on the phone all the way through," but I've never thought about the fact that, like, you're right, a lot of us probably are doing it during the sessions, but we're
Mhm.
not thinking about, like, "Oh, no, it needs to start with the phone call, it needs to be all of the things you just said." So, yeah, I'm so
Because
excited.
yeah, I think with the phone, especially with the phone call and the consultation, I think our focus tends to be more on getting the sale, which yeah, I don't want it to sound like that because obviously, like, this isn't about getting a sale. This is about us wanting to help people. That's why we do this. But you also have to, you have to make money in order to continue running the business. So I think a lot of times that's the mindset, at least during the consultation and, in the phone call, is maybe like,
Mhm.
how can we get them to realize that, yes, I'm the right one for them? And, but it's more that is the focus.
And
Versus,
I think and can I offer you a different mindset during consultations?
yeah.
If you can start to believe and start to think, the second I go in for a consultation, I've already got the sale. So now let's plan on how I can actually help them during the sessions. Like I've
Right.
always told myself, and I don't know where it came from or how I got it, but it's helped, is if I can like now the phone call, that to me, that's where I kind of like sell myself, I guess. But
Mhm.
I know if I can get the consultation, it's a guaranteed done deal. I'm making the sale. Like I'm gonna at least work with them a few times. And so I guess for me, I go into the consultation already assuming that they've hired me. And so now
Okay.
I'm like, and so if you kind of go in maybe more with that energy of like, yes, I'm here to introduce myself, but I'm also here to like come up with a game plan so we can move forward. Like it's just a given. That
And
might also make a little bit of a difference too.
yeah, and it's a good point because honestly, I won't say every time, but like 90% of the time when I get a consultation booked with someone, I end up working with them. There's very
Right.
few times that that's not the case. And, I could think of maybe 2 off the top of my head where I actually did a consultation and then it didn't lead to something.
And most of the time they come back around and maybe 2 years from now, you'll hear from them again.
Yeah.
They just weren't ready. It
Right.
wasn't that you did anything wrong or that you didn't make the sale. It was just they weren't actually ready. They were just still trying to put fillers out, and they're just starting the process of trying to figure out if they actually wanna do this thing or not. Because I've had that happen too where I'm like, "Man, like, that went really well. I don't understand." And then literally, like, a year later, I'll hear from them, and they'll be like, "Hey, I'm that one that called you, blah, blah, blah." Actually, just last night, I received a website form. I go to this morning, text back the number that was left for me on the website form, and her name's already saved in my phone. And I was like, "Oh, wait, yeah." And it was about this time last year that I did her consultation, and then nothing came of it, but I was like, "Fine, she's just not ready." And then literally now it's a year later, and now she's actually ready.
Yeah. So like you said, it's not about us, it's about them, you know.
Yes.
So them not being ready. So
Yeah.
just go in with the mindset of you already have it, you know.
Yes, yes, and then that way you can go ahead and start planning, and then that's gonna show them like, "Oh," plus it helps elevate your authority. just with your energy, right? Like just with your energy, you're coming in and like you're letting them know, back to what we were talking about before. You're the one with the plan. You're the one that is going to guide them step by step through this. And so then that way, hopefully they quit wishy-washying you so much moving forward.
Right.
So yay. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. I love it. Tell
Thank you.
everyone where they can find you again. I know I mentioned it at the beginning, but just tell them again in case they want to come look you up.
My website is neatnesting.com, and it has all the links. I have a Facebook business page, Instagram, and I also offer virtual declutter coaching now too, which is something I'm trying to kind of promote. So if
Oh, you know what you can promote real quick if you would like?
okay, what am I promoting?
Yeah. You're promoting the organizing, the digital stuff.
Oh,
I'm totally putting you on the spot for this, but go ahead.
you mean for other pro organizers?
Organizers. Uh-huh.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes, you are putting me on the spot. So I have offered to the ladies in the coaching. So this isn't advertised on my website or anything, but
Right, which means you have to come join the community. Then you get Jen. But go ahead, Jen.
I do digital organizing as well. So if you're looking for help with, getting your files sorted on your computer, or if you need to know more about how Google Drive works and all the different programs in Google Drive, I can definitely help with that. I have a lot of experience with that, whether inside or outside of Google Workspace. And then I also have a lot of experience now with Square because I've been playing around with it and figuring out things.
You're also really good with Canva.
Yeah, I'd say I'm pretty good with Canva. There's people who are a little better, but I can help you with finding some things in Canva. And, I'm just generally tech savvy. So like, Facebook, Instagram, when people are having issues with them connecting or why is this not showing a certain way, I can usually find that solution.
Yeah, she's our research guru. So we'll be in the middle of our coaching sessions and we all kind of laugh because one of us will mention something and Jen's like, hold on a minute. And so then she's typing while the rest of us are still coaching. And then all of a sudden she'll come back and be like, hey, so I found this. It's this, 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 and this. Those are the answers. And so she's kind of our go-to guru expert for all things online. But she has started helping with more of like the, if you need a system to create for all of your photos, let's say that you're taking at your sessions and you'd like it to be organized in a way that it's not all just under photos on your Google. That's something she can totally help you with. So those types of things, when we all get stuck, we call Jen. And so Jen is now offering her services. But if you would like to get a hold of Jen, just go to her website, reach out to her. She's, she'd be more than happy to talk to you about it and then see if it is something that she can help you with. And then that way, you can hire her too, but you can still come join the community as well. So we can all hang out.
Yes, definitely. And those in the community get a discount on my services. Not that, you can still hire me anyway, but yes, I did offer a special discount for the ladies in the group as a thank you for all the stuff they've done for me. So.
And for all of you listening, we appreciate you so much, and we will see you in the next episode. Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Pro Organizers Coach podcast. Go to proorganizerscoach.com to find all the ways that we can help you succeed in your business. Remember, you have the power to make a difference in people's lives through decluttering and organization. So keep honing your skills, embracing those challenges, and fostering connections. Girl, you've got this.